The chamber stretched vast and silent, carved from a single piece of dark crystal that had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic history. Today, it would witness something that seemed insignificant at the time: a simple vote to remove one species from the great tapestry of council affairs. Councillor Thexvar stood at the central podium, his crystalline form refracting light into dancing patterns across the assembled delegates. His voice resonated through translation matrices in 47 languages, though most present heard it through direct neural interface. "The matter before us is clear," Thexvar began, his tone carrying the weight of assumed wisdom. "Humanity has served the Council for 32 standard cycles. They have proven adequate in their assigned roles. However, the time has come to acknowledge a simple truth: they lack the qualities necessary for true partnership in our great endeavor." Around the chamber, heads nodded, tentacles waved in agreement, thought clouds pulsed with concurrence. The elder races had discussed this privately for months. Humanity was useful, certainly, but they were also expensive. They demanded better working conditions. They filed endless reports about systems that had functioned for millennia. They asked uncomfortable questions about resource allocation and representation. Ambassador Krelvin of the Velkoff added his support. His species had mastered quantum communication 30,000 years ago, and he spoke with the casual authority of deep history. Humans are persistent, one must grant them that. But persistence without transcendent capability is simply stubbornness. They have no psionic gifts, their lifespans are brief, their bodies are fragile. They compensate with admirable determination, but determination alone does not qualify a species for council partnership. In the human delegation section, Director Sarah Chen sat with perfect stillness. Her face revealed nothing. The three other humans present, engineers pulled from their posts to witness this moment, showed more emotion. Marcus Webb's jaw clenched. Yuki Tanaka's hands gripped her chair. James Okonkwo stared at the floor. Sarah had warned them this was coming. She had read the political currents, seen the private conversations that abruptly ended when humans approached, noticed how their comprehensive reports were filed and forgotten. When the formal notice had arrived 3 weeks ago, she had not been surprised. The vote proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Of the 47 council races, 43 voted to release humanity from obligations. 3 abstained, younger species who had worked closely with human mediators and felt uncertain about the decision. 1 voted against, the Prentek, a small species whose colony world had been saved from economic collapse by a human logistics coordinator who had worked 70 straight hours to reroute critical supplies. Thexvar announced the result with something that might have been satisfaction in his crystalline timbre. "It is decided. Humanity will be granted 6 standard months to complete transition of all assigned duties and vacate council facilities. We thank them for their service and wish them well in their future endeavors." Now came the moment everyone expected: the human protest, the emotional outburst, the desperate plea for reconsideration. The elder races had seen it before from species facing diminishment. They braced for drama. Sarah Chen rose smoothly from her seat. She walked to the speaker's position with unhurried steps, her simple gray suit, stark, against the exotic forms and elaborate garments surrounding her. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "The human delegation acknowledges the Council's decision. We will begin transition procedures immediately. We have already prepared preliminary documentation to ensure smooth handover of all systems and responsibilities currently under human management." She paused, and something flickered in her eyes, too quick for most to interpret. "We will, of course, provide comprehensive training and detailed operational manuals for all infrastructure, systems, and protocols we currently maintain. We want to ensure the Council continues to function at optimal levels after our departure." Thexvar tilted his crystalline head, puzzled by the absence of argument. "You do not wish to present a case for reconsideration?" "No, Counselor. You have made your decision. We respect the Council's sovereignty in this matter. Sarah's tone remained professional, almost friendly. We will need access to compile our transition documentation. There are many systems, and 6 months is actually quite tight for a proper handover, but we will do our best. Around the chamber, there was confusion. The Srigth Counselor, whose species had evolved past physical form into pure energy beings, pulsed with uncertainty. The humans are not upset? Sarah smiled, a small, controlled expression. We are grateful for the opportunity to have served the Council. We learned a great deal during our time here. Now, if there are no further questions, my team needs to begin work. We have extensive documentation to prepare. She turned and walked back to her delegation. The 3 other humans fell in beside her. As they exited the chamber, Marcus leaned close. Sarah, they just kicked us out, and you're acting like a professional. Sarah interrupted softly, which is exactly what we are. Stay calm, Marcus. We have work to do. Behind them, the council chamber buzzed with conversation. Most counselors were already moving on to the next agenda item, a trade dispute between 2 mining consortiums. The human matter was settled. Staffing adjustments would be made. The galaxy would continue. Only a few observers felt uneasy. Ambassador Trelvin of the Corleth, a younger species who had joined the council only 800 years ago, watched the humans leave. He had worked with human mediators on several complex disputes. They had an unusual ability to understand multiple perspectives simultaneously, to find solutions that satisfied parties who had been enemies for generations. He approached Thexvar as the chamber emptied. Counselor, forgive my inexperience, but I am curious, do we have comprehensive records of everything the humans currently manage? Thexvar's crystalline form rippled with something like amusement. Of course, all council operations are thoroughly documented. The humans will provide additional materials, but our own systems are self-maintaining. They were designed by the greatest minds of 47 civilizations. Yes, Counselor, Trelvin said quietly, but his unease did not fade. In a small office 3 levels below the council chamber, Sarah Chen sat at a borrowed desk and opened her personal terminal. She composed a message to every human facility, ship, and outpost in council space. The message was simple. Implementation of Contingency Sigma. Begin Phase 1 documentation and preparation. Remain professional and courteous at all times. Complete handover by day 179. Chen. Across the galaxy, tens of thousands of humans read the message. They had trained for this possibility. They knew what it meant. In the engine room of Station Verdant, Chief Engineer Maria Santos read the message and looked at the primary waste recycling system she had been maintaining for 6 years. She thought about the bypass module she manually reset every 72 hours. The module that wasn't in any official schematic because it had been installed by a human contractor 40 years ago to fix a design flaw no one else had noticed. She opened a new file and began typing. Waste Recycling System Manual Override Procedures, Section 1. It was going to be a very long 6 months. The humans worked with quiet efficiency that should have alarmed someone. In conference rooms across council stations, they delivered presentations to near-empty audiences. Chief Engineer Maria Santos stood before 3 Zentari technicians on Station Verdant, explaining the intricacies of the waste processing system. The primary recycler operates on a 48-hour cycle, she explained, highlighting sections on her display. However, the thermal regulator tends to drift. You will need to manually reset the bypass module every 72 hours. The module is located behind panel J47 in the secondary maintenance corridor. One of the Zentari, a young male named Kevzon, made a dismissive gesture with his anterior appendages. Our systems are automated. This manual reset seems unnecessarily primitive. Maria's expression did not change. The automation fails because of a harmonic resonance between the recycler and the station's main power grid. The frequencies clash every 72 hours. I filed a report about it 4 years ago, recommending a full system redesign. The report was classified as low priority. If it were truly important, it would have been addressed, Kevzan replied with the certainty of someone who had never been ignored. Perhaps, Maria said. She made a note in her transition log. Zentari crew declined detailed briefing on bypass module. Manual provided. She moved to the next system. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. On Communications Hub 7, human technician David Park tried to explain the custom compression algorithms that kept the quantum entanglement network running smoothly. The Velkoth engineers listened with barely concealed impatience. The Council's original algorithms are theoretically optimal, David explained, but they don't account for stellar drift in sectors 14 through 31. The pulsars have shifted position over the last 2 centuries. I wrote a patch that compensates in real time. The lead Velkoth engineer, Sornkel, pulsed with mild annoyance through his translation matrix. The algorithms were designed by the greatest mathematical minds in the galaxy. They are perfect. They were perfect 200 years ago, David said carefully. Space changes. Stars move. I can show you the drift calculations. That will not be necessary. We have your documentation. We will review it if issues arise. David nodded slowly. He updated his log. Velkoth team confident in existing systems. Custom compression patch explained, but not demonstrated. Manual provided with technical specifications. In the Logistics Center of Trade Station Meridian, Coordinator James Okonkwo walked a Sriqth supervisor through the shipping route optimization system. The Sriqtha, existing as a shimmering cloud of energy in a containment field, seemed more interested in concluding the meeting than understanding the details. The automated routing system is extremely efficient, James explained, pulling up a star chart. However, it does not update quickly enough for certain stellar phenomena. Radiation bursts from the Kepler anomaly, solar flares in the Drexen system, and the asteroid drift in Sector 9. I manually override approximately 12% of routes each day to avoid these hazards. The Sriqtha supervisor, Vrenkel, vibrated with dismissive confidence. The system has functioned for 3,000 years. Surely it accounts for such variables. It tries to, James said. But the update cycle is 72 hours. A solar flare can erupt and fade in 20 minutes. Ships have been damaged. I prevented 17 potential disasters last month alone. He pulled up his incident report log. Vrenkel did not look at it. You are too cautious. Our systems are resilient. Our ships are durable. The human freighter Destiny's Dream is not durable anymore, James said quietly. It flew through a radiation burst 2 years ago because the automated system sent it there. 37 crew members developed cellular degradation. The Council's insurance classified it as an unavoidable accident. And so it was. Space is dangerous. We accept these risks. James closed his files. He made his note. Sriqtha Logistics confident in automated systems. Manual route override procedures documented but not implemented. Detailed manual provided. Throughout human quarters on hundreds of stations, similar scenes played out. Manuals piled up. Comprehensive, detailed, sometimes running to thousands of pages. Few aliens bothered to attend the training sessions. Why would they? Their civilizations had been spacefaring for millennia, while humans were still painting on cave walls. How complicated could it be to maintain systems they themselves had built? What the Council did not notice was the sheer scope of human involvement. In maintenance tunnels, humans had been keeping life support systems running through creative engineering. In mediation offices, they had been preventing conflicts between dozens of younger races with careful diplomacy. In kitchens and hospitals and schools, they had been filling gaps that no one else wanted to fill. On Earth, in the Diplomatic Corps headquarters in Geneva, Director Sarah Chen met with the heads of every human council operation. 200 faces looked at her through holographic displays. Station chiefs, fleet coordinators, colony governors, all the humans who made the vast machinery of Council space function. Status report, Sarah said simply. The reports came in one by one, comprehensive manuals delivered, training offered, and mostly declined. Systems documented down to the smallest detail. Everything done correctly, professionally, thoroughly. Marcus Webb, speaking from his position as Chief of Human Security Operations, added a note that made several people smile grimly. We have also begun Operation Archaeology. Sarah nodded. Explain for those not briefed. We have been quietly compiling records of every report we filed over the last 30 years. Every maintenance request marked low priority. Every infrastructure warning that was ignored. Every time we were told our concerns were unfounded or our expertise was questioned. Every proposal that was rejected because it came from humans. We now have a complete archive of every time they did not listen. That seems vindictive, someone said. That seems like documentation, Sarah corrected. We are not angry. We are simply being thorough. If questions arise later about why systems fail, these records will be available. Not as weapons, as answers. Yuki Tanaka spoke from her station in the medical corps. I have been reviewing our departure timeline. We are removing over 200,000 personnel from Council operations. That includes 90% of all maintenance engineers, 60% of logistics coordinators, 75% of mediators and diplomatic support staff, and virtually all of the people who handle what the Council calls routine infrastructure management. They believe they can replace us easily, Marcus said. Let them discover otherwise on their own, Sarah replied. We will complete our handover exactly as promised. Professional to the last day. No sabotage, no shortcuts, no omissions. We will give them everything they need to succeed, if they bother to use it. She looked at the assembled faces. Human determination reflected in 200 sets of eyes. We have 6 months. We move to our own systems in the outer reach. The colonies are ready. The infrastructure is prepared. We have been planning this for a decade, though I hoped we would never need it. What do we call it? Someone asked. This exodus? Sarah considered. We do not call it anything dramatic. We are not fleeing. We are not abandoning anyone. We are simply relocating to pursue our own development. When the Council asks, and they will eventually, we tell them the truth. We are builders, and we choose to build something of our own. Across the galaxy, humans began quietly packing. Not in haste, not in anger. They trained their replacements as best they could. They said farewell to the younger races who had become friends. They closed accounts, transferred files, and shut down systems with the same care they had used to maintain them. The galaxy barely noticed. To the elder races, it was simply a staffing transition. Humans were unremarkable after all. Their departure would surely be equally unremarkable. Only a few observers felt the stirring of unease. On Station Verdant, a young Zentari technician named Kevzan watched Chief Engineer Maria Santos pack her tools. She had worked there for 6 years, and he suddenly realized he had never bothered to learn what she actually did all day. Will you be back? He asked. Maria smiled. It was a sad smile, but not bitter. I do not think so. But you have my manual. Everything you need is in there. Just remember to reset the bypass module every 72 hours. I will remember, he promised. Maria looked at him with eyes that had seen too many promises forgotten. I hope so, she said. I genuinely hope so. She walked toward the transport dock, carrying 32 years of experience in a single duffel bag, leaving behind a manual that no one would read until it was too late. The first failure occurred on day 43 of the human departure. Station Verdant's waste recycling system began emitting a low, rhythmic hum that quickly escalated to a grinding shriek. Kevzan, The young Zentari technician stared at the control panel in confusion as warning lights cascaded across the display. "This makes no sense," he muttered, pulling up the system diagnostics. "All parameters are within normal ranges." His supervisor, Grenfen, approached with the confident stride of someone who had maintained stations for 2 centuries. "The humans overcomplicated everything. Reset the primary processor. These systems ran themselves for millennia before they arrived." Kevzan executed the reset. The shrieking stopped. For 17 hours, everything seemed fine. Then the temperature in the recycling core began to climb. By hour 19, the smell reached the habitation levels. By hour 24, Station Verdant began evacuating non-essential personnel. Kevzan finally retrieved the manual Maria Santos had left behind. It was 2,300 pages long. He searched for thermal failure and found a section that made his stomach sink. The bypass module requires manual reset every 72 hours due to harmonic resonance with primary power grid. Failure to reset will result in thermal cascade beginning at hour 48 of drift. Automated systems will not detect the issue until contamination reaches critical levels. He rushed to panel J47 in the secondary maintenance corridor. The bypass module was exactly where Maria had said it would be, a small, unmarked device wedged between 2 power conduits. It looked like nothing important. It looked like something temporary that should have been properly fixed years ago. "She told us," Kevzan whispered. "She told us about this." The thermal readings began to stabilize, but the damage was done. Station Verdant's population dropped by 40% as families relocated to other facilities. The incident report filed with the council classified it as minor maintenance oversight during transition period. On Communications Hub 7, the problem started more subtly. Messages began arriving slightly delayed. 5 seconds became 10. 10 became 30. The Velkoth engineers ran diagnostics on the quantum entanglement network and found nothing wrong. The system reported optimal function. Sornkel, the lead engineer, prided himself on never making mistakes. When complaints increased, he checked the logs again. The algorithms are performing exactly as designed. If there are delays, they must be caused by user error or local network issues. Then a distress signal from a mining colony reached the hub 45 minutes late. By the time emergency services arrived, 12 miners had died from oxygen deprivation in a collapsed tunnel. The Council Investigation Board demanded answers. Sornkel finally reviewed the documentation David Park had left behind. The human had included 17 years of stellar drift calculations, showing how pulsars in sectors 14 through 31 had shifted position by measurable degrees. The compression algorithms compensated for pulsar positions, but only the positions from 2 centuries ago. David's custom patch had been updating those positions in real time, constantly adjusting for stellar movement. Without it, signals were routing through space that was slightly wrong, taking slightly longer, accumulating delays that seemed insignificant until they killed someone. Sornkel sat in his office and stared at the documentation. The math was elegant, and he had dismissed it as unnecessary because a human had created it. In the logistics center of Trade Station Meridian, James Okonkwo's warnings became prophecy. The automated routing system sent 3 cargo ships through a radiation burst from the Kepler anomaly. 1 ship survived with heavy damage. The other 2 simply vanished from sensors, their crews vaporized before they could send a distress call. Vrenkel, the Shriek supervisor, reviewed the routing logs in horror. The system had flagged the route as optimal. The radiation burst had erupted 19 minutes before the ships arrived. There had been time to reroute, if anyone had been watching. If anyone had been performing the manual overrides that James had done every single day for 8 years. The investigation revealed that James had prevented an average of 2 potentially catastrophic routing errors per day. That was 730 errors per year. Over 8 years, he had saved approximately 5,840 ships from damage or destruction. And he had documented every single one. His reports sat in the council archives, marked as routine operations, and filed without review. The cascade accelerated. Power grids fluctuated as humans who had been manually balancing loads between aging systems stopped compensating for inefficiencies. Medical supplies arrived at wrong stations because the distribution algorithms were optimized for speed, not for the actual current needs that human coordinators had been assessing. Trade disputes between younger races escalated into violence because mediators were not present to identify misunderstandings before they exploded. The council chamber began experiencing its own embarrassments. The environmental controls started cycling between uncomfortably cold and oppressively hot. The holographic display systems flickered. The translation matrices developed odd delays, causing diplomatic incidents when counselors appeared to be ignoring each other. A maintenance review discovered that the council chamber's primary power grid had been maintained by a single human engineer, Tomas Reyes, who had filed the same maintenance request for 12 consecutive years. The request detailed critical upgrades needed to prevent cascade failures in the aging infrastructure. Every year the request had been marked as low priority because the system was still functioning. Tomas had kept it functioning through increasingly creative engineering solutions, bypassing failed components, rerouting power through secondary systems, and essentially rebuilding the grid piece by piece while it remained operational. His final report, delivered on day 179, had included a note. This system will fail completely within 18 months without comprehensive overhaul. I have maintained it past its design lifespan through temporary solutions. My replacement should begin planning for full shutdown and reconstruction immediately. No one had read the note until the lights went out during a council session. Councillor Thexvar called an emergency meeting on day 192. The chamber was lit by emergency lighting. Half the councillors attended through basic audio links because the holographic systems were unreliable. The translation matrices worked, with a 5-second delay that made conversation awkward. We need a comprehensive status report, Thexvar demanded. How many systems are experiencing failures? The reports came in like hammer blows. Communications networks degraded by 37%. Logistics reliability down 42%. Station evacuations in progress at 14 facilities. Power grid failures affecting 31 major hubs. Minor conflicts erupting into major incidents at a rate 5 times higher than previous averages. Ambassador Krelvin of the Velkoth spoke with unusual humility. I have reviewed the human documentation. They provided comprehensive manuals for every system. Most of our engineers never read them. I never read them. I assumed humans were simply following our procedures. And they were not? Thexvar asked. They were keeping our procedures functional when our procedures no longer worked, Krelvin said quietly. Our systems are ancient. Many were designed for different stellar configurations, different traffic patterns, different needs. We never updated them because they appeared to function correctly. They appeared to function because humans were compensating for their failures in real time, every day, for decades. A junior diplomat from the Korleth delegation, Trelvin, spoke up. His voice was steady but carried an edge. I worked with human mediators for 7 years. They did not simply follow protocols. They understood the younger races in ways we did not. They identified problems before they became conflicts. They built relationships we did not value because the relationships were with species we considered insignificant. He paused, then continued. 3 weeks ago, the Prentek and the Jovren nearly went to war over mining rights in the Celis system. A human mediator would have recognized that the dispute was not about mining at all. It was about the Jovren feeling disrespected in previous trade negotiations. I missed this entirely. 12 people died before I understood what I was actually negotiating. The chamber fell silent. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows. In the darkness, the truth became harder to avoid. They tried to tell us, Fexvar said finally. His crystalline voice sounded different, quieter, less certain. They filed reports, they made requests, they explained the problems. And we ignored them because we could not imagine that humans understood our systems better than we did. What do we do now? Someone asked. Fexvar looked around the darkened chamber. We fix our mistakes, and we ask the humans if they will help us learn how. The Council's Emergency Commission met in a borrowed conference room on Station Unity, because the main council chamber was still without reliable power. Councillor Fexvar had insisted on reviewing every human report filed in the past 30 years. The task took 3 weeks and required 20 specialists. The reports filled a virtual archive the size of a small library. Maintenance requests, infrastructure warnings, efficiency proposals, diplomatic recommendations, safety concerns. Each document was thorough, professional, and marked with stamps like low priority, under review, or simply filed. Sornkel, the Velkoth engineer, presented his findings to the commission with visible discomfort. I have personally reviewed 2,817 technical reports filed by human engineers. Of these, 2,693 identified genuine problems. 412 warned of failures that have now occurred. 79 proposed solutions that would have cost less than 10% of what we are now spending on emergency repairs. He displayed a specific report on the chamber's holographic system, which was working again after significant repairs. This report was filed by communications specialist David Park 17 years ago. He identified stellar drift affecting our quantum network. He proposed a solution using adaptive algorithms that would update in real time. Cost estimate, minimal processing overhead. Implementation time, 3 days. We classified it as unnecessary. Fexvar's crystalline form seemed duller than usual. Continue. We are currently spending 8 million credits to rebuild the communications network because we ignored a solution that would have cost us essentially nothing. Sornkel's voice carried shame. David Park filed 14 follow-up reports over the years, each one ignored. A Zentari infrastructure specialist presented next. I have reviewed station maintenance records. Humans maintain 73% of all critical infrastructure across Council space. We believe this was because we assigned them these duties. In fact, they volunteered for them because they recognized the systems were failing and no one else was addressing it. She pulled up a specific case study. Station Verdant's waste recycling system was designed 8,000 years ago by the Prentem civilization, which has been extinct for 6,000 years. The original specifications are incomplete. The system should have been replaced millennia ago, but it still functioned because 57 human engineers over 2 centuries had been maintaining it through increasingly creative solutions. Chief Engineer Maria Santos filed a formal request for full system replacement 4 years ago. Estimated cost, 2 million credits. We denied the request as too expensive for a functioning system. 3 weeks ago, we began evacuating Station Verdant. Emergency replacement cost, 47 million credits. Population displaced, 60,000. Around the table, councillors shifted uncomfortably. Some had been certain this was an exaggeration, a face-saving exercise to explain incompetence. The data proved otherwise. Trelven of the Korleth presented findings that cut even deeper. I have reviewed human diplomatic reports from the past decade. The humans mediated 2,318 disputes between younger council races. Of these, 2,297 were resolved successfully. The remaining 21 escalated into conflicts. But in each case, the human mediator had filed a warning explaining why the situation was deteriorating and requesting authorization to take additional steps. Each request was denied as unnecessary intervention. He pulled up recent conflict reports. In the 3 months since human mediators departed, We have experienced 47 conflicts between younger races. 9 have escalated to violence. Combined casualties exceed 300 individuals. The economic cost exceeds 20 million credits. More importantly, Trelvin added quietly, we have lost trust. The younger races are questioning whether the Council actually serves their interests. 5 have begun discussing withdrawal from Council membership. The humans built relationships with these species over decades. They listened. They understood. They cared. We took credit for stability they created, then dismissed them as insignificant. The Commission sat in heavy silence. Finally, a Scifistories logistics coordinator spoke. I have reviewed operational data from Trade Station Meridian. The human coordinator James Okonkwo performed manual overrides on 12% of all shipping routes. We believed this was excessive caution. We now understand it was expert judgment. She displayed casualty reports. Since humans departed logistics operations, we have lost 11 ships to preventable accidents. 218 crew members dead. Cargo losses exceed 90 million credits. James Okonkwo prevented similar incidents twice daily for 8 years. He documented every intervention. Every single one was dismissed as routine operations not worth noting in his performance reviews. Fexvar finally spoke, his voice heavy. How did we fail so completely? We assumed competence was a function of genetic advantages, Sorntel said. Humans have no natural armor, so we assumed they were fragile. They have no psionic abilities, so we assumed they lacked insight. Their lifespans are brief, so we assumed they lacked perspective. We confused absence of innate gifts with absence of capability. Ambassador Krelvin added, we also assumed that systems designed by advanced civilizations must be superior to any maintenance performed by lesser species. We forgot that the civilizations that designed our infrastructure are mostly extinct or have moved beyond caring about practical matters. We forgot that someone must maintain the foundations while we pursue higher purposes. They tried to tell us, Fexvar said again. For 30 years they tried. Trelvin spoke carefully. Counselor, I must note something that troubles me. In reviewing the voting records, I discovered that humanity's dismissal from the Council was proposed 17 times over the past decade. Each proposal failed until this year. What changed? The question hung in the air. Finally, an economic specialist from the Dreth Collective spoke. The humans began demanding better compensation. They requested representation on junior council committees. They filed formal protests when their reports were ignored. They became inconvenient, so we removed them when they stopped being quietly useful, Trelvin said. It was not a question. No one answered. Fexvar stood, his crystalline form catching the light. We have 3 options. 1. Attempt to fix everything ourselves. Current estimates suggest this will take 15 years and cost approximately 4 billion credits, assuming no additional cascade failures. 2. Hire human contractors at market rates, which will be expensive but functional. 3. Formally invite humanity to return to the Council with full partnership status. Will they even speak to us? Someone asked. I do not know, Fexvar admitted. We dismissed them with barely concealed contempt. We ignored their expertise for decades. We valued them only as labor, not as partners. If they refuse to help, we have earned that refusal. But we must try, Krelden said. Pride is expensive. I would rather set pride aside than watch our civilization crumble because we were too arrogant to apologize. The commission voted. The result was unanimous. A delegation would be sent to human space. The message would be simple. We were wrong, and we need your help. Crafting the actual message took 6 hours. Every word was debated. Fexvar insisted on honesty. Others wanted diplomatic language that avoided direct admission of fault. In the end, Trelvin suggested the approach that was accepted. Tell them the truth, he said. Tell them everything. Show them these reports. show them that we finally understand what they were trying to tell us, and then ask if they will teach us to do better. The message was sent. Hundreds of pages of data, showing exactly how much the Council had relied on human expertise while dismissing human value. Every ignored warning, every denied request, every time the Council had taken credit for human work while refusing human voices in decisions. It was the most humbling document the Council had ever produced, and it was only the beginning of what they owed. Governor Sarah Chen's office overlooked the construction yards of New Horizons Station, humanity's largest independent facility. Through the wide viewport, dozens of human-designed ships moved in precise patterns, their hulls gleaming with new alloys and improved shielding. Beyond them, 3 new habitat rings were taking shape, built with lessons learned from maintaining ancient Council infrastructure. When the Council's message arrived, Sarah read it in silence. Then she read it again. Then she called a meeting of the Human Leadership Council. 20 representatives gathered in person. Another 100 joined via secure holographic links. Sarah displayed the Council's message for all to see. She let them read the commission report, page after page of admissions and data. She watched faces cycle through anger, vindication, sadness, and careful thought. Marcus Webb spoke first, his voice tight. They ignored us for 30 years. They dismissed our expertise. They literally voted us out because we asked to be treated as equals. And now that everything is falling apart, they want us back, Sarah said simply. And you are considering helping them? Yuki Tanaka asked. Her tone was neutral, but her eyes were sharp. I am considering our options, Sarah corrected. We left Council space because staying meant accepting being undervalued. We have built something good here in 3 months. We have 6 new stations under construction. We have established trade relationships with 17 independent species. We are proving that humans can thrive without the Council. Then why not let them struggle? Marcus asked. Why not let them learn the hard way? Because 300 people are dead, Yuki said quietly. Because stations are evacuating. Because younger species are suffering. Because infrastructure collapse does not only punish the proud, it punishes everyone. James Okongwo, joining from his new position coordinating human shipping routes, added his perspective. I spent 8 years preventing ship accidents. I did not do it for the Council's glory. I did it because I could not watch people die when I knew how to save them. The Council failed us. But the galaxy is not just the Council. Sarah nodded slowly. That is the question before us. Do we help, knowing we were treated unjustly? And if we help, on what terms? The debate lasted 4 hours. Some argued for refusing any involvement. Let the Council face consequences. Others argued for humanitarian intervention, regardless of politics. Most fell somewhere between, wanting to help, but insisting on fundamental changes. Finally, Sarah called for proposals. If we engage with the Council, what are our terms? What must change? The proposals came quickly, refined through discussion. Humans would return as independent contractors, not Council subjects. Humans would have full voting membership in the Council, with representation proportional to their population and contribution. All human reports and recommendations would receive mandatory review by relevant Council committees within 30 days. Infrastructure maintenance would be recognized as critical work, deserving respect and resources. The Council would fund a comprehensive overhaul of aging systems, with human engineers in leadership roles. Younger species would receive additional support and representation to prevent the power imbalances that had caused so many problems. Maria Santos, attending from her new position designing next-generation recycling systems, added one more condition: mandatory training. Every Council engineer works alongside human engineers for a minimum of 6 months. Not as supervisors watching subordinates, as equals learning from each other. We teach them what we know. They teach us what they know. Real knowledge transfer. The proposals were compiled into a formal framework. Sarah reviewed the document, then added a preamble that she wrote herself. Humanity departed council space not in anger, but in recognition that we deserved better. We return, if we return, not as saviors, but as partners. The council must understand that expertise is not determined by genetic gifts or species longevity. Respect must be earned through listening, not assumed through age. We offer our knowledge and skill freely, but we will not again accept being valued only when convenient and dismissed when honest. The Human Leadership Council voted. The framework passed with 93% support. 3 weeks later, Councillor Vess of the Korlef arrived at New Horizons Station as the Council's official envoy. Trell then accompanied him, along with Sornkel and Kevzan. They came without ceremony, on a simple transport, and requested a meeting with Governor Chen. Sarah met them in her office. She offered them seats. She offered them earth tea, which they accepted with curiosity. And then she listened as Vess delivered the council's formal statement. "We come to acknowledge our failure," Vess began. His voice was steady, but humble. "We dismissed your expertise. We ignored your warnings. We valued your labor while refusing to value your voices. We were wrong. The data proves it beyond question. The consequences prove it beyond doubt." He gestured to Sornkel, who bowed his head, an unusual gesture for a Velkov. "I personally dismissed your communication specialist's warnings. I believed our algorithms were perfect because my species designed them. I was arrogant. David Park's solutions were elegant and correct. I was too proud to see it. I am sorry." Kevzan, the young Zentari technician, spoke next. His voice trembled slightly. "Chief Engineer Santos told me everything I needed to know. She offered to train me properly. I dismissed her as overcautious. Station Verdant nearly failed because I did not listen. I read her manual after the crisis. Every word was true. I should have read it immediately." Sarah listened without interrupting. When they finished, she poured more tea. The silence stretched, not hostile, but thoughtful. "Why did you not fight the dismissal?" Vess finally asked. "Why did you leave so quietly?" Sarah smiled, the same tired but genuine smile she had worn in the council chamber months ago. "Because fighting would have been pointless. You had already decided we were not worth listening to. 30 years of reports proved that. We could have argued, pleaded, presented data. You would have been unmoved because the problem was not your information, it was your assumptions." She stood, walking to her viewport. "We are builders, Counselor. When we realized the Council saw us as janitors rather than engineers, as labor rather than partners, we had a choice. We could waste energy trying to change minds that were closed, or we could redirect that energy toward building something where our value was recognized. So you left us to fail," Vess said quietly. "No, we left you comprehensive manuals. We offered extensive training. We documented everything. We gave you every tool needed to succeed." Sarah turned back to face them. "We left you the opportunity to learn. Learning through difficulty is often more effective than learning through lecture. Though I admit, I had hoped the lesson would come with fewer casualties." She returned to her desk and pulled up a data pad. "This contains our terms for engagement. We will help rebuild council infrastructure. We will provide expertise and training. We will return as partners, full council members with voting rights and genuine representation. And we will work alongside your engineers as equals, teaching and learning together." Sarah slid the pad across the desk. "These terms are non-negotiable, not because we are angry, but because we will not again accept being valued only when convenient. Read them carefully. Discuss them with the council. If you agree, we can begin immediately. If you cannot agree, we will wish you well and continue building our own future." Vess read through the document. His eyes widened as he progressed. These terms are generous. Given how we treated you, we expected demands for reparations or punishment. We do not want punishment, Sarah said. We want partnership. Real partnership built on mutual respect. The terms are designed to ensure that respect is structural, not dependent on individual goodwill. Some council members will resist, Vess warned. Some will see this as humans taking advantage of our crisis. Then those members can learn to maintain their own infrastructure, Sarah said calmly. We are not desperate to return. We are offering assistance because it is the right thing to do, and because the younger species deserve better than being caught in council politics. But we will only return on terms that acknowledge our value. She leaned forward. Counselor, humans have a saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We will not be fooled again. These terms ensure that our expertise is respected through systems and structures, not just through promises that can be forgotten when the crisis passes. Vess set down the datapad. I will present these to the council. I believe we will accept them. We have little choice. The alternative is watching our civilization crumble. But I also believe we should accept them because they are fair. You have every right to demand respect. Kevzon spoke up hesitantly. Governor Chen, if we agree to these terms, would Chief Engineer Santos consider returning to Station Verdant? Even temporarily? I want to understand what I missed. Sarah's expression softened. I will ask her. Maria is currently designing improved recycling systems for our new stations. But she might be willing to consult. She genuinely cares about the work, not just the recognition. The meeting concluded with careful handshakes, an Earth custom that the council delegates had researched. As they prepared to leave, Trelvin, who had been quietly observing, spoke. Governor, may I ask one final question? When you departed so quietly, when you did not fight or protest, was part of you hoping we would fail, hoping we would learn the hard way? Sarah considered the question seriously. Hoping? No. Expecting? Yes. I knew that the council would not understand what we contributed until our contributions were absent. I hoped it would not come to crisis. I hoped you would read our manuals and implement our recommendations. But I expected human nature, and apparently alien nature, to require harder lessons. She smiled slightly. I took no pleasure in being proven right, but I am satisfied that we responded with dignity rather than anger. We left professionally. We documented everything, and now we return, if we return, as partners rather than supplicants. That matters more than vindication. Vess bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in Korleth culture. We will recommend acceptance of your terms, and personally, I will advocate that they be accepted not reluctantly, but enthusiastically. The council failed you. These terms give us the opportunity to do better. 3 weeks later, Sarah Chen stood in the council chamber once again. The lights were working, restored by a human contractor at premium rates. The holographic systems functioned perfectly, upgraded with human-designed improvements. The environmental controls maintained comfortable temperature, balanced by systems that humans had optimized. Councillor Fexvar addressed the assembly, his crystalline voice carrying through translation matrices that had been completely rebuilt to human specifications. Before this council stands a vote of historic significance. We vote not merely to reinstate humanity's membership, but to acknowledge them as full partners in our enterprise. We vote to recognize that expertise and value are not determined by genetic gifts or species longevity, but by knowledge, skill, dedication, and wisdom. He paused, letting his words resonate through the chamber. We vote to admit that we were profoundly wrong, that we dismissed expertise we should have valued, that we ignored warnings we should have heeded, that we took for granted work we should have honored. The vote was called. One by one, the council races registered their decision. The result was unanimous. 47 votes in favor of full human partnership. Sarah Chen stood at the human delegation position, now relocated to the primary circle rather than the observer section. She felt the weight of 30 years of ignored reports, of dismissed expertise, of undervalued contributions. She felt the satisfaction of knowing that dignity and professionalism had proven more powerful than anger. Humanity accepts the Council's partnership, she said clearly. We return not as those who were rejected and must prove themselves again, but as equals who choose to share our knowledge and learn from yours. We return because the galaxy is worth building together. She paused, then added quietly, and we return with the understanding that true partnership requires constant work. Today's vote is important, but partnership is proven through actions, not words. We will judge this relationship not by today's ceremony, but by whether tomorrow's human engineers report receives the same respect as a Velkoff physicist's theory. Fexvar's crystalline form seemed to brighten. That is fair, and it is a challenge we accept. Let tomorrow's actions prove today's words. As the chamber erupted in the closest approximation to applause that 47 species could manage, Sarah allowed herself the smallest, quietest smile. Humanity had not departed in anger. They had departed with dignity, and they had returned on their own terms. In the gallery, watching through a viewing port, Maria Santos stood next to David Park and James Okonkwo. Marcus Webb and Yuki Tanaka stood beside them. All the humans who had lived through the dismissal and built something new. Do you think it will work? Marcus asked. I think we have created the structure for it to work, Sarah replied, joining them after the ceremony concluded. But structure is not enough. They must choose, every day, to value expertise over assumption, to listen rather than dismiss, to respect knowledge regardless of its source. And if they fail again, Yuki asked, then we will have our own thriving civilization to return to, Sarah said. We are no longer dependent on their approval. That changes everything. James looked out at the council chamber, now filling with delegates eager to discuss implementation details. We built something good by leaving, but maybe we can build something better by returning. Maybe, Sarah agreed. Time will tell. But whatever happens, we prove something important. We prove that dignity matters more than desperation, that professionalism speaks louder than protest, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away until others recognize your worth. She turned to leave, then looked back at her colleagues. And now we get to do the actually interesting work. Not just maintaining systems, but redesigning them. Not just fixing problems, but preventing them. Not just being heard, but being partners in decisions. Finally, Maria said with a grin, actual engineering, instead of just keeping ancient junk running. They walked out together, humans who had departed quietly and returned with dignity, ready to build a better galaxy alongside species who had finally learned to listen. Behind them, in the council chamber, Councillor Fexvar looked at the spot where Sarah Chen had stood and felt something he had not experienced in his long lifetime. Humility earned through failure and hope earned through second chances. The galaxy would be better for it.